Welcome to another episode of the series in which we explore every city in England region by region in order of average house price. Having previously covered the southwest, southeast and east of England, we now shift our focus to the more reasonably priced parts of the country, the Midlands. And yes, technically there's no such official region as the Midlands, but as the East Midlands only has 4 cities, it seems silly not to combine the East Midlands and West Midlands. So if you're interested in the property market or you're here for the geography and visuals, this video has you covered. The prices quoted are of course time sensitive, but compiled from the same source at the same time. So let's dive in. Number 11. So the city in the Midlands most deserving of the old estate agent's euphemism of ideal for first time buyers is Stoke-on-Trent. But as I trust regular viewers of this channel will know by now, I don't do cheap shots. The reason behind Stoke's affordable housing are far more complex than what I could possibly go into here, although I may devote a future video to the subject at a later date. But for now, I'll just say that the city that gave the world abolitionist Josiah Wedgwood and rock stars Lemmy and Slash won't break the bank. Specifically, the average property in Stoke-on-Trent costs just over £169,000. Number 10. Next is a potentially surprising entry for those expecting Skid Row-esque visuals towards the start of this list, because the second cheapest city in the Midlands is Lincoln. So here's a perfect example of the deceiving nature of house prices. If you were to ask me what city in the Midlands makes the perfect day trip or weekend getaway, then without hesitation I would say Lincoln. But we're looking at livability here, and the main thing that Lincoln lacks is a motorway connection, which is ironic considering the Romans connected it to London nearly 2,000 years ago. Oh, and its railway station being on a branch line rather than a main line may also be a factor. In any case, the average property in Lincoln comes in at just over £207,000. Number 9. Now to the youngest city in the Midlands, having been granted city status shortly after the millennium, Wolverhampton. With a population of over 200,000, this is a sizable city considering its proximity to neighbouring Birmingham. Then there's also the new town of Telford around 15 miles away. The point being that there's seemingly no major supply shortage with houses here, at least compared with certain other areas, thus keeping the house price under relative control in the city that gave the world traffic lights. The average property in Wolverhampton costs just over £227,000. Number 8. Here's a city that reinforces the old mantra, don't believe everything you read in the papers. The city of Derby. So, contrary to what some would have you believe, there are far worse places to visit than Derby, speaking as I am as someone who's visited every city in Britain. Although only a town until 1977, Derby has a proud history, which includes Britain's first silk mill and one of the first Rolls-Royce factories. Also, its location is about as central as they come, which would be ideal from a practical point of view. In reality though, due to some railway shenanigans by Richard Beeching in the 60s, Derby lost a number of major direct train connections, including Manchester, so despite the Peak District being largely synonymous with Derbyshire, Derby itself is arguably not the best base in which to explore it. As for the average property price in Derby, that comes in at just over £233,000. Number 7. Now for a city with plenty of history, some good, some bad, as I send you to Coventry. Of course, it's no secret that Coventry was one of Britain's worst hit cities during the Second World War. The shell of the old cathedral, which today stands right next to the present post-war cathedral, serves as a permanent reminder of this sad chapter in history. Architecturally, Coventry is understandably mixed, with a few old gems alluding to its past, predating neighbouring Birmingham in terms of city status by several centuries. On the one hand, its population of over 300,000 helps keep its property prices from spiralling into London territory, but by the same token, its central location means you're within reasonable distance of several notable places. Well, except the beach, that is. The average property in Coventry costs just over £247,000. Number 6. Next is a city synonymous with a certain outlaw, the city of Nottingham. So whether or not Robin Hood really did exist and stand up to Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham here is anyone's guess, but you can't beat a good legend. What we can say is Nottingham became a giant of the lace-making industry during the Industrial Revolution and was granted city status by Queen Victoria in 1897. Lying on the Midlands main line and just off the M1 motorway, the city is well connected, helping it attain in house price terms the middle spot in the Midlands, so to speak. On average, a property in Nottingham costs just over £257,000. Number 5. Now for somewhat of a departure from the industrial heartlands and to a city that's a mere dozen miles or so from Wales, Hereford. So this is an ancient cathedral city and county town of Herefordshire, a county with fewer towns in it than the Isle of Wight, but with natural wonders like the Wye Valley and Brecon Beacons nearby. It has a lot to offer to those of an outdoorsy persuasion, and a population of around 60,000 implies more scarcity in the housing market here compared to our previous entries. The average property in Hereford costs just over £258,000. Number 4. And now for the one you all knew was coming. In fact, you could say it was as inevitable as the coming of the Sabbath, the city of Birmingham. The UK's second largest city is home to over 1.1 million people, which makes it more than twice the size of the next largest city in the Midlands. So, in a similar way to London, Birmingham has a certain gravitational pull all of its own. Whilst the population implies that housing may be plentiful, the same can be said for jobs. So, naturally, young professionals are drawn to Birmingham for career options, making it one of the pricier cities in the Midlands. That said, house prices here are nevertheless about a mere 36% of those in London. Make of that what you will. Specifically, the average property in Birmingham comes in at just over £273,000. Number 3. Next is the most expensive of the 4 cities of the East Midlands, Leicester. Now, it's not every city where you'll come across the corpse of a medieval king in a car park, but then Leicester isn't just any city. Brewing beneath its modern exterior is about 2 millennia of history. But as far as house prices are concerned, its location just off the M1 motorway, coupled with a direct train link to London, make it a long-range commuter option for those working in the capital, if they're not put off by the train journey of just over an hour into St Pancras, that is. Either way, Leicester does have a busy local economy of its own, being home to over 400,000 residents. The average property in Leicester costs just over £280,000, which is a fraction below the UK average, according to the Office for National Statistics. Number 2. The runner-up for the Midlands is a city known for a certain saucy export, and a challenging one to pronounce for some at that. Worcester. Here's a city that seems to keep out of the limelight to an extent. With a population of just over 100,000, it's on the smaller side compared to most others we've just seen. Considering its proximity to Birmingham, but without the heavy industry aesthetic, it becomes easy to see why this ancient city is among the most expensive in the Midlands. On average, a property in Worcester will cost you just over £294,000. Number 1. And the most expensive city in the Midlands happens to be its smallest, Lichfield. So, the birthplace of Samuel Johnson, who incidentally was a member of the Midlands Enlightenment of the 18th century, is today home to around just 32,000 people. But besides its famous 3-spired cathedral, what else does Lichfield have going for it? Well, for one thing, just like Worcester, a close proximity to Birmingham, but without the big smoke vibe. Its location on the confusingly named line of track known as the West Coast Main Line makes it well connected to London to the south and Liverpool and Manchester to the north. But that's not all, because advanced rail discounts are surprisingly common from here, meaning you could actually end up paying about the same amount for a ticket into London as you would for, well, a pint in London. But what's not so cheap, in relative terms, is a house in Lichfield, with the average property here coming in at just over £333,000. Thus concluding this guide to the cities of the Midlands. Thanks for watching and have a great day.